The spaceship was silent and cold, drifting through the empty blackness of space. Inside, two strangers were waking up in a small, tight room they did not know. The room was barely big enough for one person. But there were two. There was only one bed in the middle of the room, hard and metal, with nothing else. No chairs, no windows, no clothes, just bare walls and cold air. Both of them opened their eyes slowly, feeling confused and scared. The first was a tall man with sharp eyes and dark hair. His name was Yolan. He was from Earth, a soldier in the Galactic Peacekeepers. Trained to fight, but never to trust easily. The second was a young alien woman. Her skin pale blue and her eyes bright green. Her name was Vera, from the distant planet. Zalera, a skilled spy and a strong warrior. They were enemies, on opposite sides of a long war between their people. But now, they were forced to be in this room together, alone and helpless. Yalan looked at Vera carefully, his body tense, his mind racing with questions. "Where are we?" he asked, his voice low and rough. Vera did not answer, but her eyes were cold and full of hate. She sat on the edge of the bed, pulling her arms close to her chest, feeling exposed without her clothes. Yalan noticed she had nothing to cover herself, and he realized he had no clothes either. The fear grew stronger in his chest, but he hid it behind a mask of anger. The door of the room was thick and sealed shut. With no buttons or controls nearby, they could hear the faint sound of the spaceship's engine humming far away. Neither of them knew how they got here or why they were put together in such a small place. Memories were blurry, but they both remembered being captured during a fight. They were prisoners now, but why put two enemies in one room with no way out? The question hung in the air like a heavy cloud, making the silence unbearable. Vera finally spoke, her voice sharp and steady. "This is a trap. I know it. They want us to break, to fight each other until one of us dies, but I won't give them that satisfaction, Yalan," she said with fire in her eyes. Yalan looked back at her, his face hard like stone. "You think I'm scared? I've faced worse than this, and I always survive, but this is different. We have nothing, no weapons, no armor, no clothes, just each other. And a bed too small for two." Both sat quietly, their breathing loud in the small room. They could feel the tension like electricity in the air. Neither wanted to move closer. But the small space forced them near. Jalen's mind raced with plans to escape. But the thick walls offered no hope. Vera's mind was filled with memories of war and the hatred she carried for humans. Yet, something inside her told her this was not just a simple prison. Suddenly, the lights flickered and the room grew colder. A soft, mechanical voice spoke from hidden speakers. "Welcome to the trial chamber, Yalan and Vera. You have been brought here to resolve your conflict through cooperation. Failure to cooperate will lead to your demise. Your survival depends on trust and teamwork. Good luck." The voice disappeared as suddenly as it came. Yalan and Vera stared at each other in shock. The word trial was new to them, and it filled their minds with questions. How could they trust an enemy they hated so much? Could they survive long enough to even try? The room suddenly felt smaller, and the weight of the situation pressed down on them. Vera stood up slowly, wrapping her arms around herself. She looked at Yalan and said, "This is not a joke. If we want to live, we have to find a way to work together. I don't like it, but I don't want to die here either." Yalan nodded slowly. "I agree, but don't think I trust you. This is just survival, nothing more." The silence returned, but it was different now. They were no longer just two enemies trapped in a small room. They were two people forced to face a challenge neither wanted. Outside, the spaceship continued its endless journey. Inside, two hearts beat fast with fear, anger, and the smallest spark of hope. The first step was simple: survive this night together. But the question remained, how would they do it? Would their hatred destroy them? Or would this forced meeting change everything? The answers were hidden in the dark, waiting to be found. The door remained sealed. But something inside both of them had changed. Neither spoke again that night. But they knew tomorrow would be different. Tomorrow, the true trial would begin. And only one thing was certain: there was no going back now. The next morning, the small room felt even colder. Yolan and Vera woke up facing each other, still with no clothes, still full of anger. Neither spoke at first, the silence heavy between them. Jalen's eyes moved quickly, watching Vera's every move. Vera's hands clenched into fists, but she did not look away. Both knew they had no choice but to stay calm for now. Outside the door, the soft hum of the spaceship was steady. But something felt wrong. A small screen appeared on the wall. Glowing with strange symbols, Yolan moved closer, trying to read what it said. It was a message. You have 24 hours to complete the first test. Fail, and the consequences will be fatal. Neither understood what the test was, but the threat was clear. Vera broke the silence first, her voice low and tired. This place? It's designed to break us, to make us fight. But if we do, we both lose. Yolan nodded slowly. I don't want to fight either. But trust is hard when I don't even know if you'll try to kill me. Vera's eyes flashed with pain. You think I want this? I was born into war, taught to hate your kind. But here, now, we have to make a choice. The room grew darker, suddenly, and the bed began to hum softly. A panel opened on the wall, revealing two small devices. Each device had a single button, red and glowing. The screen showed a timer starting at 24 hours. Yolan and Vera looked at the devices. Confused and suspicious, Yolan reached out and pressed his button. Instantly, a soft voice filled the room. You must cooperate to unlock your restraints. Failure will reduce oxygen levels. Both of their wrists and ankles suddenly felt tight. Bound by invisible energy, they could move, but only slowly and with care. Vera hissed. This is a trap, but maybe we can use it. If we work together, we might survive. The first test was simple, but strange. They had to move from one side of the room to the other without breaking the invisible bonds. If one moved too fast or too far, the bonds would tighten and cause pain. At first, they tried to do it alone, pulling and fighting, but the pain forced them to stop. Gasping for breath, then, slowly, they realized they had to move at the same time. In the same way, Yolan looked at Vera and said, "We have to trust each other for this." Vera hesitated, then nodded. They took a deep breath and started moving together, slow and careful, step by step. They matched each other's pace. The pain was less. The bonds loosened slightly. Their eyes met, and for a moment, the hatred faded, replaced by a small spark of understanding. Hours passed as they worked to complete the task. Neither spoke much, but the silence was not empty now. It was filled with a new feeling hope. Yolan shared a small story about his brother. Lost in the war, Vera told him about her sister. Taken by enemy forces, their stories were different, but their pain was the same, outside the room. The spaceship systems monitored their progress. Inside, the walls pulsed with soft blue light. Like a heartbeat, the test was not just physical. It was a test of will and trust. Neither Yolan nor Vera could have imagined how hard it was to let go of old anger. Then, suddenly, the bonds snapped open. The restraints disappeared, and the room grew warmer. The timer on the screen stopped, showing test complete. Yolan and Vera collapsed on the bed. Exhausted but alive, for the first time, they smiled faintly at each other, tired friends in a strange place. But the relief was short-lived. The screen blinked again with a new message. Second test will begin in 1 hour. Prepare yourselves. Yolan groaned. "This is not over." Vera looked determined. "Then we better be ready." As the hour passed, they sat close for the first time, sharing their warmth. Neither said it, but both knew they needed each other now. The small room no longer felt like a prison, but a place of change. Their bodies still bare, their pasts still heavy, but their hearts opening when the second test began. A new challenge appeared. A holographic map showed strange symbols and moving targets. They had to work together to solve puzzles. Jalen's logical mind and Vera's quick thinking had to combine. At first, they argued about the right path. But soon, they learned to listen, to respect each other's strengths with every success. The tension between them faded. Their old hatred was replaced by cautious respect. The room changed colors. From cold blue to warm orange, it was a sign they were growing stronger, not just in body, but in trust. Yet even as they worked, both felt a deeper question. Why were they here? Who put them through this? And what was waiting for them outside this room? The answers were still hidden, but one thing was clear. They could not face what was coming alone. As the tests continued, the enemies became partners. Not friends yet, but no longer foes. They learned the hardest lesson of all that sometimes. Survival means putting hate aside, even if just for a while. The small bed in the middle of the room was no longer a place of battle. It became a place where two enemies started to build something new, something neither of them expected: trust. And as the timer ticked down for the next test, both prepared silently, knowing the real fight was not against each other, but the unknown ahead. The small room was quieter than before. Yolan and Vera sat side by side on the cold metal bed, their bodies still bare and vulnerable. But something between them had started to change. The walls pulsed with a soft light, bathing them in a warm glow. Neither spoke at first, the weight of the past still heavy in the air. Suddenly, the screen flickered, and a new message appeared. Reveal your truths to unlock the next challenge. It said. Yolan looked at Vera, unsure what this meant. Vera's green eyes narrowed, then softened. "I guess it means we have to be honest with each other," she said quietly. Yolan sighed. "I never thought I would say this, but I think we have no choice. If we want to survive, we have to stop." Hiding behind anger, Vera nodded slowly. "Then I will start. I was raised to hate humans, to believe they were our enemies, but deep down, I always wondered if there was more to them." She looked down, her voice trembling slightly. "I lost my family to the war. I thought hate would make me stronger, but it only made me lonelier." Yolan listened, his expression softening. When it was his turn, he said, "Oh, I joined the peacekeepers to protect people, but I also had my reasons. My brother was killed in a battle against Solera forces. I hated the aliens, blamed them for everything. But now, hearing your story, I realize how much pain we both carry." The room grew warmer, the light brighter. The invisible bonds that once held them tightened briefly, then vanished. On the screen, a new image appeared, a hologram of their ship's control panel. The message read, "Combine your skills to regain control of the ship. Your survival depends on teamwork." Yolan stood up, moving closer to the hologram. Vera followed, and together they examined the controls. The panel was complicated, full of unfamiliar symbols and blinking lights. Yolan's military training helped him identify the security codes. Vera's knowledge of alien technology helped her navigate the alien systems. As they worked side by side, a new bond formed. They began to share their thoughts without fear. Yolan admired Vera's intelligence and calm under pressure. Vera respected Jalen's determination and bravery. But just as they started to make progress, the ship shook violently. Alarms blared around them, red lights flashing. The screen changed to show an external threat approaching, an unknown enemy ship closing in fast. Jalen's eyes narrowed. "We're under attack," he said. Vera's hand went to her side, where a small hidden blade was strapped beneath her skin. "We have to prepare for a fight," she said firmly. The room transformed suddenly. Walls shifting to reveal weapons and armor. Yalin and Vera quickly armed themselves. Putting on protective suits that appeared from hidden compartments, they moved with purpose, no longer enemies, but warriors fighting side by side. Outside the room, the ship's hull shook as energy blasts hit it. Yalin took control of the ship's defense systems. Vera hacked into the enemy's communications to confuse them. Together, they coordinated a defense that surprised even themselves. During a brief lull in the fight, Yalin looked at Vera and said, "We make a good team. Maybe this trial is more than just a test of survival." Vera smiled for the first time. "Maybe it's a chance to end this war if we can survive together. Maybe others can too." But the battle was far from over. The enemy ship launched a boarding party. Attempting to take control from inside, Yalin and Vera prepared to face the attackers. They knew this fight was the real test of their new alliance. As the door opened and shadowy figures stepped in, Yalin and Vera stood back to back, ready to fight. Their movements were synchronized, their trust growing with every strike. They defended the ship with strength and skill. The battle was fierce, but they did not falter. After the last attacker was defeated, the room grew silent again. Yalin and Vera leaned against the wall, breathing hard. They shared a look that said everything without words. They had survived the impossible together, and it had changed them. The screen flickered one last time, displaying a message, "Trial complete." Alliance forged. Then, the final door unlocked slowly. Beyond it lay freedom, but also an uncertain future. Yalin looked at Vera. "What now?" She smiled softly. "Now we decide if this is just the beginning, or if the war between us can finally end." As they stepped through the door into the unknown, two enemies, no more, but two survivors who had found hope in each other. The air outside the small room was thick with tension. Yalin and Vera stepped cautiously into the wider corridor of the spaceship. The walls were lined with blinking lights and strange symbols they did not fully understand. The silence between them was no longer heavy with hate, but filled with uncertainty. Yalin broke the silence first, his voice low but steady. "We made it through the trials. But I still don't know who put us through all this, and why." Vera nodded, her green eyes scanning the dim hallway. "Someone powerful wants us to break, or maybe to learn something. I can feel it too." As they moved forward, the ship groaned and shifted beneath their feet. An eerie feeling settled over them, like the ship itself was alive and watching. Suddenly, a soft voice echoed through the corridor. "Welcome back, survivors. Your journey is far from over." The voice belonged to an AI named Sora. She appeared as a hologram before them, a glowing figure with calm, knowing eyes. "I was designed to test you, to see if two enemies could become allies. You passed the tests. But the real mission begins now," she said. Yalin frowned. "What mission? Who are you working for?" Sora's holographic face remained calm. "I serve the Galactic Unity Project. It's a secret group trying to end the war between your peoples. You two were chosen as the first step toward peace." Vera looked surprised. "Peace? After everything we've lost?" Sora nodded. "Yes, peace is possible, but it requires trust and courage. You have both shown that. Now, you must work together to reach the Unity Summit, a place where leaders from all sides will meet to negotiate a truce." Yalin exchanged a glance with Vera. It was a risky plan, but they both knew the war had to end. "We'll do it," Yalin said, "but it won't be easy." "No," Vera agreed. But we're not alone anymore. The ship's corridor opened into a control room filled with screens and buttons. They could see stars outside and distant ships moving silently. Sora explained. "This ship will take you through enemy space. You must avoid detection and reach the summit safely." I will guide you, but the dangers are real. Yulan took the pilot's seat, his hands steady on the controls. Vera sat beside him, analyzing the maps and data together. They navigated the ship into the dark void of space. The silence between them was comfortable now. They shared small smiles and quiet conversations. Learning to understand each other better, suddenly an alarm sounded. The ship's sensors detected a patrol ship nearby. Jalen's face tightened. We have to hide. Vera quickly activated the ship's stealth systems. The ship shimmered and disappeared from enemy radar. They held their breath as the patrol ship passed. When it was gone, they both exhaled in relief. That was close, Vera said, but it will get harder. Yulan replied, we have to stay sharp. As days passed, they faced more challenges: asteroid fields, system malfunctions, and internal doubts, but each test brought them closer. They shared stories of their homes, their dreams, and fears. Yulan told Vera about his love for his planet's oceans. Vera shared memories of Zalara's glowing forests. One night, under the dim light of a distant star, they sat side by side. Vera looked at Yulan. I never thought I'd find a friend in an enemy. Yulan smiled softly. Neither did I. They reached out and clasped hands, a silent promise of trust. But their journey was not without danger. A distress signal suddenly flashed on the Pew//. On the control panel, it was from a nearby ship under attack. Vera hesitated. Should we help them? Yulan nodded. We can't just ignore it. They changed course and rushed to the distress signal. When they arrived, they saw a small transport ship surrounded by enemy fighters. Without hesitation, Yulan took control of their ship's weapons. Vera hacked the enemy communications to create confusion. Together, they fought fiercely and saved the transport. The grateful crew welcomed them aboard. Among them was a young pilot who looked at Vera with admiration. You two are heroes, she said. Yulan laughed. Just survivors trying to do the right thing. As they traveled together, the small group shared hopes for peace. The war was still far from over, but for the first time, a new hope had begun. Yulan and Vera knew their path would be difficult, but they also knew they would face it together. The bed where they had once been forced together seemed like a distant memory. Now, they were partners, two enemies turned allies, bound by trust, and a shared mission for peace. And as the stars stretched endlessly before them, their story was only beginning. The stars outside the ship glimmered cold and distant. Yulan and Vera stood side by side on the bridge, their faces set with determination. They had made it this far, but the greatest challenge was still ahead. Ahead lay the enemy blockade, a wall of warships ready to stop any who tried to pass. Yulan studied the holographic map, his finger tracing the path through the danger zone. We have to get through without alerting them, he said quietly. Vera nodded, her eyes sharp as she scanned the incoming signals. We can use the asteroid belt for cover, but the timing has to be perfect. They worked together, planning every second of their risky run. The ship's engines hummed softly as they entered the belt. Weaving between giant rocks, the enemy warships were close behind, their sensors searching for any sign of the fleeing vessel. Suddenly, the ship shook violently. A missile struck the hull, and alarms blared throughout the ship. Yulan gritted his teeth. They've found us, he said. Vera moved quickly to the weapons console. Firing back with precision, they fought hard, dodging attacks and firing weapons, but the enemy fleet was too strong, and their shields were weakening. In the heat of battle, the ship's control systems began to fail. The lights flickered, and the engines sputtered. Yulan struggled to keep control. We're losing power, he shouted. Vera's hands flew over the control panel, trying to repair the damage. She looked at Yulan. We have to make an emergency landing. With no other choice, Yulan guided the ship toward a nearby moon. The surface was rocky and barren. But it was the only safe place. The ship crashed hard, shaking the ground beneath them. Dust rose around the wreckage as silence fell. Broken only by their heavy breaths, Yolan and Vera climbed out of the damaged ship. The moon's cold wind bit at their skin, but they were alive. They looked at each other, their faces dirty and tired. "We survived," Yolan said, trying to smile. Vera nodded, "But we're not safe yet." They had no weapons and little supplies. The moon was dangerous and unknown, but they had each other. And that was their greatest strength as they moved away from the crash site. Strange sounds echoed in the distance, alien creatures unseen but felt. Watched their every step. Yolan tightened his grip on Vera's hand. "We need to find shelter," he said. Vera pointed to a cave nearby, its entrance dark and wide. "That looks like our best chance," she said. Inside the cave, the air was cold and damp. They lit a small fire with flint stones found on the ground. The flickering flames cast shadows on the walls. For a moment, they rested, the danger feeling far away. Yolan looked at Vera. "We've come a long way from that tiny room. Remember when we had nothing but one bed and no clothes?" Vera smiled faintly. "It feels like a different life. I never thought I'd trust a human, but here we are." Their conversation was cut short by a sudden noise outside. Footsteps approached the cave, slow and cautious. Yolan and Vera stood, quickly moving toward the entrance. Out of the shadows stepped a figure, cloaked and mysterious. "Who are you?" Yolan demanded, his voice firm. The figure lowered the hood, revealing an alien with soft blue skin and wise eyes. "I am Kalen," the stranger said. "I mean you no harm." Kalen explained that he was a scout for a rebel group working to end the war. He had been watching their ship crash and came to help. "You two have shown great courage and trust," Kalen said. "But the war is not over, and danger follows you even here." Yolan and Vera exchanged looks. Understanding the path ahead would be even harder, but with Kellen's help, they felt hope rise again. Together, they planned their next move, reach the rebel base, and prepare for the Unity Summit. That night, under the strange stars of the moon, three unlikely allies made a promise to fight not just for themselves, but for a future where enemies could become friends. The small bed and cold room were far behind. Now, the real journey had begun. The rebel base was hidden deep within a dense asteroid field. Yolan, Vera, and Kalen navigated the damaged ship carefully through the twisting rocks. Every moment was tense, knowing danger could strike from anywhere. The silence between them was full of unspoken fears and hopes. When they finally arrived, the base appeared like a fortress carved from stone. Lights flickered along the walls, and figures moved quickly in the shadows. Inside, leaders from many worlds gathered. The Unity Summit was about to begin, and the future of the war would be decided. Yolan and Vera were led to a meeting room. The room was filled with powerful leaders, each wary and watchful. The air was thick with tension, old grudges and hatred still lingering. Yolan looked at Vera. "We have to show them we've changed. That peace is possible." Vera nodded, her voice steady. "We carry the proof of that." When their turn came, they stepped forward together. Yolan spoke first. "We were enemies once, forced together in a small room, but through trials, we learned to trust and survive as one. If we can do that, so can all of you," Vera added. "War has cost us too much families, homes, lives. It's time to end the fighting and start healing." The leaders listened, their faces hard to read. Some whispered to each other. Others watched silently. Suddenly, a loud alarm sounded, shaking the room. The base was under attack. Enemy ships had found their location. Chaos erupted as guards rushed to defend the base. Yolan and Vera exchanged quick glances, knowing their fight was not over. Together, they joined the defenders. moving through the corridors with purpose, Yalan manned the weapons control, firing at the incoming ships. Vera coordinated defense strategies with the base's leaders. The battle was fierce, the enemy relentless. Explosions rocked the base and alarms blared endlessly. Yalan felt the weight of responsibility heavy on his shoulders, but Vera's calm and steady presence gave him strength. During a break in the fighting, Kalen approached them. "We have a chance to end this now," he said urgently. "There is a weapon on the enemy's command ship that controls their fleet. If we destroy it, their attack will collapse." Yalan and Vera knew the mission was dangerous. They volunteered immediately, preparing for a risky infiltration with Kalen guiding them. They boarded a small stealth craft. The stars rushed past as they raced toward the enemy command ship inside the ship. Shadows loomed, and danger waited at every turn. Yalan and Vera moved quietly but quickly, avoiding patrols and traps. Their trust in each other was stronger than ever. Every step showed how far they had come from enemies to partners. They reached the weapon control room, guarded by fierce soldiers. A fierce fight broke out, but Yalan and Vera fought side by side. Their teamwork was flawless, their bond unbreakable. Finally, they destroyed the weapon, causing the enemy fleet to falter as alarms blared and the ship began to shake. They escaped back to their craft, racing away as the enemy retreated. Back at the rebel base, the battle ended with victory. Cheers and relief filled the air, but Yalan and Vera knew peace was only the beginning. At the Unity Summit, their courage had shown what was possible. Leaders agreed to meet again and work toward a lasting peace. Yalan looked at Vera and said, "We've done more than survive. We've started something new." Vera smiled. And it all began with one bed and no clothes. Their story became a symbol of hope. Proof that even the deepest hatred could be overcome. And as they looked to the stars, they dreamed of a future where enemies became friends, and peace was more than just a word. The war had changed, but the road ahead was still long and hard. Yalan and Vera stood together on the bridge of the rebel ship. Looking out at the stars, the Unity Summit was over, and leaders had agreed to work for peace. But peace was not something that came easily or quickly. Yalan broke the silence. "We've done something no one thought possible, but now we have to help others believe it too." Vera nodded. "Trust is fragile, and many still carry old wounds and fears. We have to show them a new way." Step by step, their journey took them to many worlds. Planets torn by war and fear. They met soldiers and civilians, leaders and children. Each encounter was a test of their new bond and mission. On a small, ruined planet, they helped rebuild a village destroyed by fighting. Yalan worked alongside the people, lifting heavy debris. Vera treated the wounded, her hands gentle and sure. The villagers looked at them with surprise. Human and Zelaron, working side by side. A child approached Vera shyly, holding out a small flower. "It's for you," the child said quietly. Vera smiled, accepting the gift, her heart warming for the first time in years. Yalan watched, feeling hope grow stronger inside him. But not everyone was ready for peace. Some warlords and generals saw their efforts as a threat. They spread fear and lies, trying to turn people against the Unity Project. Yalan and Vera faced danger not just from battle, but from betrayal and politics. One night, their ship was attacked by saboteurs. Explosions rocked the hull, and alarms screamed. Yalan and Vera fought off the attackers with skill and courage. But the attack was a warning piece, was fragile, and enemies lurked everywhere. Despite the challenges, their bond grew stronger. They learned to rely on each other in ways they never imagined. Trust became their greatest weapon, and their story inspired many to believe in change. At a gathering of leaders, Yalan spoke with passion. Peace is not just the absence of war, it is the presence of understanding and respect. We were enemies, forced together with nothing but a bed and no clothes. but we found a way to survive. And trust, Vera added, our past does not define our future. We can choose to build bridges instead of walls. It will not be easy, but it is possible. The leaders listened, moved by their words. Slowly, agreements were made, treaties signed. The first steps toward a lasting peace were taken. Yalin and Vera stood together, knowing their journey was far from over. But for the first time, they believed in a future without war, a future where humans and Zellerans could live side by side, where old enemies could become friends. As they looked out at the stars once more, they smiled, remembering the small room where it all began. One bed, no clothes, and two enemies forced together, who chose trust over hate and hope over fear. Their story was no longer just theirs. It was a symbol of what was possible for all. A reminder that even in the darkest places, light could be found. And as the stars shone brightly above, Yalin and Vera stepped forward, ready for whatever came next, together.